Hi, everybody. Well, I was really happy to see this guy today. Um, Sometimes I watch the videos, The Dark Days to Come, on Facebook. They have testimonials by people who have had spiritual experiences and prophecies for the future. And I would say about 95% of the videos I've seen, well, I believe that there is some truth into their stories, for sure. But what they do is they twist their stories to suit the narrative here. And they don't really come all the way out and say. And this guy I'm going to show you is the best example of our world that I could give you. He's doing a better job than I've done, and he doesn't know it. He doesn't also know that he's giving off little symbols in his video too. You see this, I don't know if you can see this, where my cursor is. He's got this ball over here, a white ball, right? And he's got water here and a tap. And it's just all so serendipitous. Like, I'm in the fifth dimension, okay? So my thinking is beyond this 3D matrix. And when I'm watching people, I don't just watch, I'm using my emotion when I watch people, because my emotion is the only thing that can connect with people. And if they're not speaking emotionally, then I don't connect with them at all, and I think they're a liar, and I move on. But this guy is not a liar, and I want to go and hug him. Before I let you watch his video, though, I'm going to tell you my story again about the golden beings of light. I'm going to tell you my story because it's already there, and then you're going to watch this guy. So I was a spirit, and this was a dream I'd had after hypnosis. And this was before the visit with the beings of light. I had a dream that I picked my mother. I had a dream that I was traveling up the roads of North Vancouver, British Columbia, and I was following a little girl. She ran into her house and she disappeared. My spirit followed into the house. I saw her mother and I saw her grandfather. I saw her mother's purse, and I intuitively knew there was a huge story here. And then suddenly I was flashed away. I was in a dark space. It was very dark. I was on a platform, and it was I saw 4 beings in front of me. They were blue, and it was kind of cartoonish, if you don't, it's the only way. There were 4 cartoon beings that didn't have spirits in them. That's all I can say about that. And then I heard the male voice say, "Who will bear the brunt of her anger?" And I saw the 4 beings were listening to this. And the blue beings. The second being raised her hand. And that is when my spirit, who was standing behind these 4 cartoon blue beings, my spirit went into the second being to the right. My spirit went into Cheryl Ann Grossclose, the second daughter, or the second child to my mother, who was the 10-year-old girl. So my spirit picked my mother. That I know. Now we'll flash up to 2016. In September, I had a dream. I didn't have a dream. I had a visit. I was wide awake. I was on my bed. I just gotten a kitten, and it was prancing around and keeping me aware. My body was really heavy and asleep, but my mind was aware because of the cat. When all of a sudden my room filled up with golden beings of light. They were above me. I was still grounded on my bed, and they were above me. And they started pulsing telepathically urgent information to me. And they just kept pulsing it. It felt like it was going on for an hour. And they also did some kind of work with my body. After I kept saying through the event, I'm not going to remember these details. I'm not going to remember. I just felt like, well, don't worry, just be prepared. And then to my right was my son in clear vision, in the same, I just saw him. He was there, clear as day. He was my son. And I recognized my son anywhere. And he gave me a heart orgasm. He recorded with me. And if you haven't been following my videos, you don't know what recorded means. Well, he was separate from me. He had detached from me, which many children are detaching from their parents. And he had detached from me. I had lost my intuition. I did not know his life. I had no idea who my son was. What happened to him? I had no idea, and I thought I knew him better than anybody. I knew nothing. Nothing. I'm saying that to you guys too. You know nothing about your children, and you know nothing about your parents. And so all of the judgment, all of the drama has to stop. And he gave me this heart orgasm that told me that well, I think the reason why he brought the golden beans, I know it was my son who brought the golden beans or like to download me, because I wouldn't listen to my son. He was with me in spirit since he died in 2003. And he would play with my electricity, he would turn alarms off and on, he put messages on my phone, I'd see little things all over the place that, no, my son's messing with me here. Yeah, I just went blank. I'm not supposed to move on with that. The reason why I believe he came, like he was a victim of my husband. I was married to a man who only married me for access to my son. Women, you have no idea what's going on. And okay, I'm going to drop it, okay? I'm going to let you watch his video, but before I let you watch it, I'm going to tell you that I've told everybody in this last few months, I've come all the way out and said, we are stars, we are the light, we are Christ. The beams in your eyes are recording your movie. You are a star, and we literally do come from the moon. And this guy is going to prove it, even though he still doesn't know. He's going to talk about his story, and I just ask you to, well, first of all, if you're ever going to believe somebody, you've got to know the difference between reality and fantasy. When you're watching a fantasy, you're going to hear all sorts of words like Jesus and all sorts of crap involved in the afterlife experience. And I don't believe any of them. I think they're just confused because they were religious here. And there's nobody religious on the other side. And nobody. So let's just listen and see what he says. And I'd love to hear your comments if you want to share your comments. I always appreciate it. Getting your views. And if you like, you can like my video and share it around, because this is real. This is about as real as you're ever going to get. I promise you that. It's if you've been living in fantasy, it's time to get real, and this is real.
G'day guys, how you doing? It's the Kiwi, and as the title says to this video, this is what happened when I died. So it's long overdue. I've been talking about doing this video for many years now. It's a very personal experience, so it's taken a huge amount of courage for me to actually step up and do this. I'm actually really, really nervous about it. the first thing I want to let you all know is that all of us as human beings, we process alcohol, anything with caffeine, sodas, drinks with a lot of sugar. Our body will process these as a poison. Now, depending on how sensitive our bodies are to those diuretics, because that's what they are, the diuretics, will depend on how your liver will flush your body. Well, for me, my body sees it as nothing but sees alcohol, caffeines, coffees, sugary drinks, sodas, that sort of stuff, as nothing but a pure poison. So my body will go into a full-blown flush. And I will, depending on what it is, my body will flush 3 to 5 times faster than the average human being. Then what happens is if I'm chronically dehydrated, I will have seizures. And those seizures are heart seizures. So what happened with me was, it was a Friday night. I was 24 years of age. I caught up with a buddy of mine, John, who lived just down the street. We went into town, drove into town, caught up with some friends at a local restaurant bar called the Auto Lodge. Had a couple of quiet drinks there. People that we caught up with there, we went to another bar in town. This is years ago, back in the 90s, early 90s, and had a couple more drinks at that bar. And the people that we met along the way, we ended up going to another friend's restaurant. Oh, it was more of a cafe, actually, in town. And we chilled out there for a couple of hours, had some bottles of wine, champagne, nothing crazy. It wasn't a bender or anything like that. Ate food. Chef made us hors d'oeuvres and all that sort of stuff. And then we went back to John's place, chilled out there for a little bit. And I walked home. You know, John only lived about an 1/8 mile from my parents' house at the time, and I walked home, went to bed, and a few hours later, it was about 6 in the morning, I woke up and I felt like absolute hell. And in typical Lawrence fashion, I just went down to the bathroom and brought up what I thought was inside of me that was making me feel like hell. What it was I didn't realize how chronically dehydrated I was. So once I got done emptying myself out, I stood up and I collapsed. I fell to the floor. Well, this is the first time anything like that had ever happened to me in my entire life. You know, it surprised me. It didn't spook me. I was just like, what the hell's going on? You know, what's happening here? And as I'm trying to figure out what had happened, my heart started to race. And it felt like a Gatling gun going off my chest. It was just like, and I was like, never had that happen to me before. I was like, good God, what the heck's going on here? And as I'm processing these thoughts, my heart just boom, locked up. And I'm just like, you start to gasp for air like you're a fish out of water. Now, I was like, what is going on here? I've never had this happen to me before. Something's not right. Something's wrong. Something isn't, you know. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't worried. I was just like, what's going on? And as I'm processing these thoughts, my heart goes, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, whew. All right, we're good. Thank goodness for that. So, in my infinite wisdom, I started to process why this started to happen. And what happened, I came up with the conclusion that I'd stood up too fast, and for whatever reason, I got lightheaded and passed out. Or collapsed. So what I thought was, okay, I did this too fast, so I'm going to move more slowly this next time, and, you know, maybe I'll crawl back to my bedroom. All this stuff, I was so aware of it. It was like, you know, it was so conscious of what was going on. Obviously, or else I wouldn't be explaining this to you. But what happened was as I started to move around in the bathroom, my heart started to race again, and the exact same thing happened. My heart locked up. This time I'm on my knees, and I fell forward onto my hands, and I was just like, okay, now we've got a problem. This is not good. Whatever's going on with me right now, this isn't cool. You know, what's happening? I start processing everything again, trying to figure out what's happening. Now, the silly thing about it was I still wasn't panicking. My parents were at home. I didn't yell out for help. I didn't do anything. I'm just fully immersed in this experience and what's going on. And as I'm processing this, trying to really figure what's happening, I'm starting to get a little concerned now. My heart starts pumping again. Sweet, thank you, awesome, alrighty. Well, I'm just going to lay here for a minute because something's not right and I need to figure out what's going on. So I chill out in the hallway. I'm just in the first section of the hallway outside of the bathroom, and I'm like, okay, let's give this another shot. And as I start to move again, my heart starts racing. Well, this time I started to surrender. I said, okay, God, if you want me, I'm yours. I figured, it must be my time. My number's up. If you want me, I'm yours. And as I started to surrender, this warmth washed over me. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. And as that warmth washed over me, my heart locked up again. And this time, I completely let go. And I said, okay, looks like I'm yours, God. And as I let go, these euphoric feelings, these feelings are just absolutely, words can't even describe them.
I would just like to insert here the feelings he's describing is his feelings of Christ within. He's back to Christ. He went back to Christ in this time. We're all Christ, but he doesn't know it. He never figured that out, but I'm telling you, that's what he was feeling.
Feelings of love, peace, tranquility, safety. Even though I'm dying, everything's okay. Everything is 100% okay. And these euphoric feelings are just washing through my body. And I never forget it to the day I die again. I just put my head down on my hands like that, or on my arms, and I can still, it's the most incredible, haunting thing that I can hear to this day, is those final puffs of air exiting my body. And that last final puff of air just went, ah. And as that puff of air exited my body, I can still, my head was like that, I can still hear it so clearly. It's incredible. I left my body. And next thing I'm looking at is I'm looking at my legs, right? And I'm looking at my toes. And then down below me is my body. My body's lying, and I could see myself just lying on the hallway floor of my parents' house. And it was just incredible. That was just the most incredible feeling. I just took it in. I just took it in. I'm like, oh my gosh, there I am. I've died. Wow. And then I lift my head up and I start to look around my parents' house. And I realize that the roof is off my parents' house. And I'm looking at like this 3D architectural rendering of my parents' house. It was very cartoonesque. Things take on a whole different dimension when you look.
When you're Christ and you're in the fifth dimension, 3D looks funny.
Looking at man-made stuff through your soul's eyes once you've left your body like that. And I was just like, wow, check that out. And I remember looking over to my parents' bedroom, the master bedroom, off to my left. And I could see both my parents lying in the bed. I can still see it clearly to this day. And there's light shining out of their bodies. And I was like, wow.
So I'm just going to remind you, he is 24 years old at this time, and he did not have a good experience with his parents, and he was shocked to see that they are light as well. He saw them as the golden beams of light too, coming out of them.
Look at that, my parents have got souls. Huh. Kind of a jacked up thing to say, but if you knew how brutal my childhood was, it'd be like, you'd understand why. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I went back to focusing on my body for a little bit and looking around. And as I looked over to my right, I looked further out And I realized that everything outside of my parents' house was just this inky black abyss, like this pure black darkness. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's freaking amazing. Like this darkness was everywhere around. And I think this is where people get really, really petrified when they die. They see that darkness. And what that darkness is just us disconnecting from the human consciousness, the combined human consciousness that makes all this happen. And I realized that it was like it was intrinsically known inside of me. So what happened, I was like, so the only thing I'm aware of consciously is the last thing I was around, which is my parents' house. That's the only thing I knew. And I was just like, wow.
That's the only thing he knew. He was 24 years old, and the only thing he knew was his parents. And do you know why? Because that's the only love he knew. He wasn't married yet. He didn't love anyone else. He loved his parents.
Processing this information, like it's like my body's metabolizing, or my soul's metabolizing. You can feel the information flowing through every element of your soul, the energy in it, and you're processing this information. And it's not processing here, like I said, it's your whole body's processing this information. And I've had this feeling to look up, and as I looked up, I was like, wow, now that's amazing. There was this bright, bright light above me, and I'm looking at it, and as I went to look back down at my body, that light just went all around me, just completely engulfed every aspect of everything, all around. And I was just like, what is this? And it was so bright. It was this crystalline, bright, bright white light. And I'm looking around at everything, or at this light. I'm trying to figure out what it is. And you're trying. It's like it's too much for your soul to take in. And you're trying to look for something in this light, something. And it was the first little tinge of like, I'm not feeling too easy right now. And as I got that feeling, I started to hear this like, you know how in movies they'll have insects, thousands of insects crawling on the ground. They make that noise. That's kind of what it sounded like. I'm like, what is that? I'm looking around trying to figure out what it is, and I looked down. I was like, oh my gosh. And those blades of grass just like popping up out of this light, just popping up. And every time a blade of grass popped up, it made that, and it had consciousness. That's the thing that blew me away. And it was like I felt like I was floating on every blade of grass, like it was lifting me up. And I was like, oh my gosh. And as I lifted my head up, this whole world just went, and I'm just looking around, and I'm just in awe of what I'm looking at. I mean, it was beautiful. The colors were so crystal clear, so bright. The sounds were just unreal. It was like all your senses were 1,000-fold on fire, like everything. When the wind blew past you, it was like it was holding you and embracing you. And it was just absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. You got the sky and the clouds, and in the same position as the sun, believe it or not, there's an even brighter ball of light, and it was just emanating this energy out over everything. And I realized, like, that's God. Look at that. Unreal. It was just this magnificent ball of light. You just knew intrinsically that it was the life force of everything. And I saw this golden city way in the distance. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to head towards that city. I want to see what that's about. And the moment my consciousness went towards that city, my body just started to go. You weren't walking, you just started to move. You started to glide. I was like, where your consciousness, where your attention flowed, where your attention went, it was like everything flowed that way, everything. And I start moving towards this city quietly, just moving along, taking everything in. And as I'm passing trees, I'm looking at the birds in the trees, and they've got bright light. It doesn't matter. It's every bird and every tree, their singing was just, it was like angels. It was just unreal. The sounds were so incredible. It was unreal. The trickling of water down a river stream. Oh my God. It just was incredible. And there's light shining out of these all the animals, the birds. As I went past this tree and some bushes, some deer came out from behind the bushes, and they were looking at me. And they've got this bright golden light shining out of them. And it was like they knew me and I knew them. You could feel the consciousness, the oneness between the two, between us. And
I call it Christ consciousness.
It was like you were communicating with them, but you weren't communicating with them, but you were communicating with them. You knew them and they knew you. And you just stop and you just look at them, and they're not afraid of you in any way, shape or form. They just stood there and they just took you in. So I carry on moving towards this beautiful city. Oh, sorry. The other thing that was mind-blowing about what rolled out in front of me, I grew up in the Wairau Valley of Blenheim, New Zealand. And what rolled out in front of me was the exact same Wairau Valley. This golden city was right up in the foothills, up towards an area called St. Arnold. But there was no man-made stuff. There was nothing man-made there. There was no streets, no roads, no homes. It's like it's the same realm, but different.
That's what I was saying, is the moon is a mirror to paradise. Earth is paradise. Heaven is your heart.
It's like this. It's like beyond this. It's like if a veil drops down, you can move into that realm, and it's the same place. That's the crazy thing about it. So what happened was, as I'm moving along, I'm looking over to my left, and all of a sudden there's these two balls of light just go, and about the size of a mountain, just like pop, pop, pop up over to my left. And I'm like, that's interesting. And as I carried on moving, they carried on following along with me. And as they followed along with me, I looked back over to them again. They just went lengthwise and out. And they did. They made a sound. It was just like a... And it was the shape of a surfboard, like an almond-shaped surfboard, pointing on each end, but like about 6 feet in length. I'm like, wow, it kind of took me aback a bit. So I carry on moving, and as I move, these two shapes follow me. And as they're following me, they start to take on a human form. The head starts to form, but still in this bright, bright light, okay? And their arms, and their torsos, and then down to their legs, and I'm watching them, and I finally start to slow down. I'm really taking them in as their form is finally finishing, but they're still this bright, bright, like golden light. And they do this. They've got no noses, no eyes, mouths. It's just a golden outline of a human being, and they just go. And it was the first time there where I got that knot in my stomach, and I was just like, oh, what the hell? And I didn't say what the hell. I was like, what the heck? Their eyes were just this deep, black, inky abyss. Just they're almond, they're big, big, big almond eyes, absolutely huge. And it took me aback. It's genuinely, it did. And I'm like, what the heck? And they're here. And this time I started to kind of like move around like this. I was like, well, I don't know. I got that knot in my stomach because I was heading towards this golden city. That's where I wanted to go. And as I carry on moving, they're just floating along beside me. And I was just wondering, what's this all about sort of situation. That's happening. Their hair, human hair, starts to form on them, and then the facial features, and then the clothing, and out into the arms. And I stopped and I took that in. It was kind of trippy because it was like watching wax melting over them. And as they're taking on more of a human form, they asked me, what are you doing here, Lawrence? And I looked at them and I was just like, you know who I am? And they're like, yes, we know who you are. And I'm like, oh. Seriously. And I start to move along and they said, what are you doing? I said, I want a golden city. I want to go look at that. But when we're communicating with each other, there's no mouths moving. It's all like telepathy. And the incredible thing about it is that it's like everything new. Like it wasn't just myself having a conversation with these two beings. It was everything new. Everything. From the trees to the animals to the grass to the water. Everything has consciousness. Everything has consciousness. And I was like, I want to go towards the city. And they said, well, you need to go back, Lawrence. And I just kind of stop and I look at them and I said, well, I don't know how I got here, so I don't know how to get back. And I start to move again and they said, Lawrence, it's not your time. You need to go back. And I stopped and I looked at them again and I said, well, why do I need to go back? And they tell me, and say, well, you've got things that you need to do. Not learn. You've got things that you need to do.
He says, what I've been reiterating here too, you're not here to learn. You've got things to do.
And I was like, well, like I told you guys, I don't know how I got here, so I don't know how to get back. And what is it that I need to do? And they said, we can't tell you that. You'll know it when it happens. And I still don't know.
Too brainwashed.
Sorry. But anyway, I start to move towards the city again. And they said, yet again, they're like, Lawrence, you need to go back. And I stop and I look at them and I say, guys, I told you, I don't know how I got here. I'm not going back. I know I'm home. I'm staying. And as I was getting towards the end of that conversation, I started to move again. And they go, fine then, have it your way. And I was like, I stopped and I looked back because they hadn't moved with me at that point. I stopped and I looked back and I was like, what? Because I just knew intrinsically I was in trouble. And I looked back and I was like, what? And they looked at me, both of them, and they said in unison, fine then, have it your way. And right at that point, this massive, massive hand grabbed me from behind. A massive hand. And all those feelings of love and peace and tranquility and safety, all these incredible feelings that you have on the other side just went, I can't tell you, 1,000-fold, 10,000-fold. They just went through the roof. And I was just like, oh, shit. And that energy flowed through every part of my being. But the other thing that flowed through me was the power of that hand. The power was something that I've never experienced and will never experience here on this planet. It's the power that you know that if God, creation, wanted us gone, it'd be like that. Fine, you're done. Done with you guys. And as I'm just taking this in, it's just every part of my being just is experiencing this. I'm tipped over, and as I'm tipped over, everything just washes away. And I am just railed back into my body. And this is why I didn't want to do this. Just brutal. It's just been brutal.
Okay. I really would love to contact that poor man because he's so full of emotion, and his emotion is Christ, but he doesn't recognize it, and he doesn't recognize himself, and that's it's really hard to explain. What I feel he is going through is the confusion between ego and spirit. You know, this is a total ego world here. It's artificial intelligence, and it's got the consciousness of Satan here. We're raising our babies like Satan. My mother was Satan. Okay, your parents were Satan. It's all satanic here. It's not love. It's not peace. It's not harmony here at all. Because heaven, if you want to think of it like that, is your heart. And so if your heart isn't in heaven, if you're not feeling heaven, then it doesn't exist here. Let's see if he's got more to say.
What people don't understand is once you have experienced that, anything that happens here traumatically for me, because I know God's love now, because I know what that feels like, because of that experience, when people are horrible, nasty, vindictive, the stuff that people say to me is 1,000-fold, because I know what God's love is on this side of the spectrum. I know. So when people are just disgusting to me,
I would just like to, because that's what I do, is I critically analyze everything. This guy is a narcissist. I mean, he's in his feelings now, but in his day-to-day life, it's all about what people give to him. You know, what people say to him. How it hurts him 1,000 times more than it hurts other people. That's a narcissist. That's not an empath, okay? So he had Christ. He had the moment, but he doesn't connect it to himself at all. And that's the problem. People don't connect that they're Christ, they're love. When you're a baby, when you're an infant, you're Christ. But the consciousness and the education and the religions, and now Hollywood has really taken over. And the golden beings of light were extremely grave when they came to my bed. I have hope for myself only. I really do. Because of what my son and I experienced it was a heart orgasm, right in the heart. So I feel pretty safe. But I also have an urgent feeling, emotion, if you will, to share my story and to share other people's stories that can help people get back, come back home into your Christ now. Don't wait to die. Feel now the emotions you need to feel. Emotion is your first sense. It's Christ until it turns into fear. Let's see if you got any more to say.
It's 1,000-fold. The effects aren't the same for me as a human being. And I want people to experience that. It's as an incredible experience as what it was to be able to keep myself in check, to be able to keep myself locked down, has been one of the most incredible feats of tolerance a human being could ever possibly go through. And I know there's other people on this planet that have had the hand of God put them back in their body, and I'd love to be able to talk to them because I know that they've experienced the same thing. It's brutal. It's brutal. It's why I spend so much time by myself now. It's why I spend so much time alone. I can't take it anymore. I can't.
I'm the same. I can't take it anymore either. I will be alone until I die because the consciousness here is evil. The imagination, the fantasies. And people just don't know how to connect the dots that this is a mother problem. We're void of mother. Our little Christs are not getting the love they need from their mothers. They're given formula, they're given medication, they're told they're flawed and sinners, and so they need to learn and improve. And everybody's doing it. Everybody in the world is learning and improving for Satan. I think that's all.